Welcome to the Culture of You, meaningful dialogue with me and my favorite people. Welcome to the Culture of You, everyone. My name is Karen Hewitt, and I'm your host for today. Today, I have my favorite part of each season where I bring my dynamic and magnanimous wife on with me to talk about whatever we want to talk about that season. Erin Upchurch. Hewitt.
Yes, throw the Hewitt in there.
Throw the Hewitt in there. Don't worry about the paperwork. All right, so
it really is hard to change your name when
it's
you
a
have
lot.
a lot when you're not like 22.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're glad to be here today, and we're talking today about a topic that we have a lot of charge around. I could say we have a lot of charge around.
Should we talk about why we look so fancy?
If you want to, yeah.
We're going to a wedding later.
Yeah,
That's
we are
really
going
it.
to a wedding. That's
But
it.
I think this is worth being fancy for. So I
I
mean,
have another
that.
jacket. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because it's low key formal. So,
But we're worth it.
we're worth
We
it.
could just sit at home and watch TV like this.
We could.
Good.
We're like, we didn't get dressed up for this podcast. Just so you know, it's not for you. Anyway, there you go. All right, so we're talking about polyamory and non-monogamy, and we're in a wonderful studio this time. We're coming to you from the Soul Dope Studios.
So dope.
With Camille.
Camille.
Camille's here. So if you hear any laughter throughout the course of this episode, just know it's Camille, and that's real-time feedback, and we're going to keep going there. We're going to lean into the places where there's laughter.
And they can laugh too.
And you can laugh too. All right. So it gets real vulnerable here, and I'm sure we'll go as deeply as we can go, and we're going to talk about some things. And just notice, that's the practitioner in me saying, just notice in your body.
My shoulders are already making their way up. I'm like, find your feet.
We touched it. We touched on it in the last episode of season 1. But, find your noticing and try not to have some judgment on it, is what I would say as you listen to this. Especially if you are monogamous. It's going to bump up against everything.
Everything.
Because it bumped up against everything in us.
Still is.
Yep. All right. So that is your, content warning?
Invitation.
That is your invitation. Yes. To just notice without judgment the things that come up in you where you're like, nope. And we're going to examine them for you. So then you can dismantle them if you want or not. You can avoid them. You absolutely can.
Let's just do it.
All right.
Like my hands are clapped. I can't even. I'm like, remember your practices up, church.
All right. Yes, you are. Just a reminder, an executive director for a nonprofit, a practitioner, certified, 200-hour certified yoga practitioner, a polarity practitioner, a Reiki practitioner, a doula, a death doula.
Mm-hmm. Semi-retired therapist.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my certification as a somatic educator.
Yes, she is moving her way into retirement. Although I do know her ideal goal is to be a kept woman.
Goal. Which is so crazy because, and I think this all fits in, but I'm 40. I turned 46 this year. Yay. 20 years ago. I know. The 40s are fantastic. We should do an episode about being 40.
Maybe that's the next one.
Almost 50. And
in the comments, y'all, let us know what you want to hear about when we talk.
But 20 years ago, never would I ever even let those words come to my mouth. Like, do I have to work?
Right.
Because my mom I have 2 sisters, and she was like, get your degree before you do anything else, get married, whatever, so you can always take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So the idea of leaning into somebody else to care for you, which we do it anyway in relationships, when you add money to it, it changes everything.
It's interesting because I'm like a workaholic, and my innate desire is to provide more so experiences. Obviously, money helps that, but I want to provide experiences for people that I love. Obviously, my wife, of course. Obvi. But I'm willing to work for that, and that's like my career has led me to a place where I'm starting to be able to create and curate those experiences personally. I mean, in the community, I do that anyway, but to curate those experiences where we, go out of town for a weekend or come with me to work in Florida.
And don't leave the resort for a whole week.
Yeah. Like, I was like, do you want to go to the beach? You're like, no, the pool's fine.
But that's like our love languages too.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I love to show, I show love through acts of service. And so caring for you, caring for others, doing your laundry. I hope that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm totally a bachelor.
Because you were not okay the first time I said that.
I was not okay with you doing my laundry. I'm used to doing it. I, too, was raised by an independent mother who was like, make sure you have everything you need. Mm-hmm. No, you need to know how to do these things and take care of yourself. Don't rely on anybody. It's nice if you can learn to, be in community with others, but you don't need to rely on anyone.
Right. But one of the ways I receive love is gifts, which is a newer thing that I'm like, that's okay. Yeah. And the way that you provide and care is like a gift. And so.
I mean, I also get you really good gifts.
Mostly, yeah. No, you give really good gifts.
I'm a great gift giver.
You are a fantastic.
It is a love language that I take a lot of pride in.
You actually are very meticulous and thoughtful about it.
Very much.
And
yes.
And this is related because we're talking about multiple relationships and how can we get all of our needs met here? Perhaps. Is polyamory about deficit? Ooh, are we lacking something?
Scarcity versus abundance mindset. All right. So these are all things that we're going to get into, but to set the stage for this conversation, okay, I have a few things that I'm going to ask. I'm going to also ask myself of this. Great. So I'm going to give that. It's more of a conversation to what your signs are astrologically.
Okay. I love this.
I also want to know your human design. For the girls that get it, you get it. For those that don't, look it up. Attachment style. Yes. This will be a good portion. And then anything else that you want to share as a baseline for your information. So we'll go back and forth. All right. So astrological signs, let's start there.
Leo sun, Virgo moon, Scorpio rising, Cancer my Venus is in Cancer. My Mercury is in Virgo. My Mars is in Gemini.
I don't know if I can run mine down that much.
Okay. And my Virgo moon is very bossy. She's a good leader.
She's assertive.
She's a good, assertive leader and pretty much is in charge of all of this.
And 100% correct.
Are you stating a fact or asking a question?
I'm asking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I am a Leo sun, a Leo rising, an Aries moon. Blah, blah, blah. House is Venus.
Your
blah,
Venus
blah, blah,
is
blah.
in Cancer.
Thank you.
And your Mercury is also in Virgo.
Okay.
So we are aligned in that. We have the same sun, same Mercury, and same Cancer.
Oh, okay.
I forget your Mars.
I'm also right a lot, but when you're with someone that's right all the time.
My daughter always says that you're not cool if you have to say it. And you're like, I'm also right a lot.
Yeah, it's if this were like competition, like if this were like, I always say it's never competition to the winner. Like, this is competition to me about being right. And I lose sometimes because you have, the autism will play in. I think that's something else I don't want to share. But like that plays in where you're like, well, you're right. And then like later on down the road, I see that you were indeed right. Maybe that's the witchy mystical part.
Maybe.
Okay. We'll stop there. Human design.
I'm a manifestor generator.
Okay, so we got a manifesting generator over there.
Too, what it means?
Human design is really the way energetically that you exist in the world and the ways that you show up. I'm a generator, and in that sense, a lot of my work is to respond. It's to respond to whatever's happening. And in that sense, that can feel like I'm very reactive, but I want to initiate things.
Aries moon, right?
So like all of these work together. You'll get it in time. But here's some baseline. So basically human design is really, there's a lot of sacred geometry in that. It's really fascinating. People with crystals probably already know what we're talking about. And then if it sounds interesting, hit us up. We'll talk about it or whatever. Attachment styles.
So attachment styles are interesting. There's like 4 main ones. And essentially, there's insecure and there's secure.
Right.
And in the insecure, there is anxious, preoccupied. There's avoidant, dismissive, fearful, avoidant, fearful, dismissive. Those are all insecure styles. And then you've got secure. And I think what's important to know is attachment styles are not like, they're mutable. And it's how our system responds to a real or perceived threat to our relationship or connections. And so it might fluctuate depending on the relationship or ships you're in or where you're at in your life. My dominant one is anxious, preoccupied.
Mm-hmm. My dominant one, what would you say? I guess I should ask you, the therapist.
Well, there's also disorganized, and
Mm-hmm.
I would say you are very firmly disorganized in your attachment style.
Explain what that means to them. Avoidant
Push,
and
pull.
anxious.
Push, pull. No, it means at times when the thing about avoidant is not wanting to get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And an anxious is like not wanting to lose. If
Or
that
be
makes
abandoned.
sense. Yeah. And so if I'm activated in my anxious preoccupied attachment style, I don't want to lose you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna less evolved me would be like this. And we've been through that. Yeah. Right. But for you in an avoidant space is like, oh no, I don't want to be absorbed. I don't want to lose myself.
I can't breathe. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you get this pursuer withdrawal vibe that goes on, and it's just really hard.
Good. And another thing to say about that is security. So we could talk a little bit more about that. I actually have that to talk about.
How you loved me with security.
Well, I did.
You did.
Ditto, kiddo. You did good. All right. So we can love each other into security, but when we're in activation or when our nervous system is activated, there's a whole different persona to our relationship. And when we're activated, we're still working on ways to, because in the moment, I don't know what I think. I'm still processing, but I have a lot of rage or anger, and I can't regulate that.
Right.
And in the moment, you're asking me specific questions because that's your anxious avoidant, or
I think the intensity of the questions depends, because I always want information.
Yes.
I don't. Well, and it is related. Like I don't do well in what feels like chaos or if there's missing. I don't like to feel confused or have holes in things, which I think
I'm the queen of missing information too.
You start in the middle sometimes.
Yeah. And that's the other thing to share is I have ADHD and autism, latent life diagnosis, which is its own, experience. But what it has done for me has opened my eyes to some of the ways that are just kind of default or organic to me. And different needs that I have around sensory. If I'm overstimulated, that can be a real activator for my nervous system that has nothing to do with anybody that is in the space that is activating me, like sensory wise. But then I come home and now I'm interacting with you and my nervous system is activated.
Right.
And so like I'm already irritated. I'm already at capacity. And then it's like, I really probably just need to go put my headphones on. And even though I know that's what I need to do, it's really hard for me to be like, this is what I need. I should go meditate. I should go breathe. I should go do some stretching. Like, that's really hard for me to actively do that. I will probably sit and stare at the computer or write out a to-do list or do something that feels productive instead of doing the thing that I need to do. And in that moment, if you were grounded, which you have been at times, you're like, go lay down. Or, go take a nap.
I'm tired. I'm not doing this with you right now.
I'm not doing this with you right now. And, that makes sense. And when you're grounded, you can do that. If I'm grounded and you're maybe a little activated or dysregulated, I can be like, here's the answer. Like, and it's no big deal. Like, the answer comes with ease. Yeah. When I'm activated and you're activated and you ask a question, it's like.
Well, and I think in the spirit of solidarity around disclosure, I have major depressive disorder, moderate, reoccurrent.
Oh, okay.
That's a long-standing diagnosis. And so I've had to learn how to live with that. It's the way that my brain and my body work. And it's not a way of defining myself, just like ADHD and autism or not, but it is a very real part of who I am. And I also have CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which means essentially that my body, think about PTSD and most folks are like, oh, it's a flashback or one event. CPTSD is stress, prolonged stress or trauma over time. And it's almost like my brain is wired to be on fight or flight or some type of adaptive response all the time. I've done a ton of work to regulate, so much work. EMDR was beautiful. But I think it just further informs how we are navigating this and having multiple or different relationships.
Yeah, I don't think, and this is not in any way a knock to that complexity about you. walking into this, I consider myself, I've been in trauma-informed spaces and healing-centered spaces. I don't think I understood the magnitude of the way those invisibility or invisible disabilities show up in the space of activation versus regulation.
Yeah.
And from a person who is with you and loves you and cares about you, it can be challenging, just as I'm sure my autism and ADHD can be extremely challenging. And my Jack, the little angry Aries, all fire little ball of
such a cute
default
ball of
fire. Yeah.
But you know what? It wasn't activated. I mean, it's been activated, but it didn't come to the forefront until we began to explore non-monogamy in our relationship. Yeah. And that's when it was like, you want some lighter fluid? Here's a match. Here's some more lighter fluid. And wind blowing, the fire just gets bigger. Like, that's truly when it got activated. And I think I began to have an understanding of how it all plays in. I think over the last year, I would say, or this past year, for you, it's really, you've been able to see it outside of me and also how it is a part of me. But it's not me per se. Yeah.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed that experience. So 1 year of marriage, 1 year and a month, to the days, really.
To the day. We had our wedding reception this day last year.
Yes. So, thinking about that as we move forward into the conversation, I think one thing that grounds us consistently in this conversation is, why do we choose polyamory?
I don't fucking know. Just kidding. I know.
All right. So tell us why.
I'm in a grumpy space with non-monogamy today.
You're in a grumpy space. In general.
Period.
In general. You said you're a cranky social worker.
I'm a cranky old social worker. Yeah. It's middle age.
You're nearing retirement.
I'm almost 50.
I know.
That's all I can think when I hit.
How cool that you around 55. I don't know when you're thinking of retiring. We're trying to get you to the we're trying to, anyway. That's relative different. Because you have all these practices.
I'm never going to stop doing my work until I stop doing my work. Yeah.
The real question is when I'm going to buy her a house in the woods so she can just go play with crystals and tarot cards and look like this in the woods. We'll get back to you all on when that time is.
From our cabin in the woods. So why. And I love that we're talking. I think our why keeps evolving.
Okay.
But earlier this year, hopefully we can talk about how we've come far this year, but we had some challenges and because I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Why is someone rocking my boat?
Right.
And we had our centering was, why are we even doing this? And for me, non-monogamy is something, it's about room and space. I need options. It doesn't mean I want to take those options. It doesn't mean that I'm going to pursue those, but I need to know that I can have them. Yeah. And I've always been a person that even have friend crushes. Everybody has a crush on their friend in some way, a friend. Usually they turn into more for some folks.
I have some pretty strong lines with my friends, though.
Now?
Yes.
Remember how we got here?
I'm friends with, here's the thing. I'm friends with my exes.
We were friends first, though.
That's different. I'm friends with a lot of my exes, so I will say that.
True, and I love that about you.
But when I have friends, like, I know there are some people that are friends in my life, and I have a lot of friends that are just my friends.
But friend crushes are, when you first meet somebody and you just want to know everything about them and spend time with them. Yeah. And that's a friend crush and it happens and it's real. But there's so many relationships I've had or experiences where the jealousy arises or they're just friends. What else is going on? I don't know.
I'm not friends with one of my best friends from middle school.
Yeah.
Because I think what was playing into some things was that they actually had a crush on me.
Sure.
Just some of the ways that they would get jealous and the ways that things would happen or the expectations that were placed or the extravagant ways that they would show me that they, cared about me or would pop up at my college games, with their whole family. I'm the goddaughter of their child. And then they dated a woman, right? So it was
they were gay for you?
I think so. And I've had that experience a lot. That's probably a whole nother podcast about nobody feels sorry for me.
But for me, yes, I want space and I need options. But the very core piece is the honesty, the truth telling. Yeah. I am a truth teller through and through.
Yes.
And I respect the truth and non-monogamy, which is silly that it has to be in this. Why can't we just be truth tellers all the time?
Now, as well as I know, that everybody cannot understand, handle, navigate mitigate, enjoy, appreciate that. If you're not committed to growth, you don't want to hear the truth.
You're right. So not for me, non-monogamy opens up that space for you can lie.
Right.
Because we know that infidelity and all those things happen in non-monogamy. But if you're committed to thriving and having a generative experience, you're not going to lie. And some of our hardest conversations, and I would say the most enriching conversations, have come from telling the truth.
Here's something else that I do want to share, because I don't know if it always gets heard. I've said it on Camille's podcast. I've said it on my podcast. I am pansexual, which means that our youth at KYC used to say hearts, not parts. It means that I'm attracted to energies. I'm attracted to that. I'm also gender fluid, which a non-binary would be the way that most people understand it. But I'm really gender non-conforming, which means I just don't subscribe to the gender roles that society has placed on us, which we'll get into that conversation a little bit later. But I do not subscribe to any of those gender roles that society has placed on us. So those are other things that I want to share here. Do you want to?
I'm queer.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking queer.
Your politics are queer.
I am just, my bones are queer.
It's hot. All right. So,
and I'm a hard femme.
You are a hard femme. Quirkier than you'd expect. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the honesty and the communication and what as we got married, because we started out our relationship and that was, we don't have to talk about
We're
that.
We're not going to.
Great.
No. But I think it's important to note that we started out in a shit show.
Yes. Yes, and I think that ultimately that just means we all weren't aligned on what everybody wanted in that. That's what that was. And at the end of the day, there was some triangulation, which means that one person's talking to this person over here and one person's talking to this person over here. And then we're trying to sort out what the truth is. And that sucks.
And I was activated.
Right.
Everybody was activated, but I also was like an abusive relationship prior to this. And so there was a lot.
There was a lot living
happening
there. And, it got us here. And so we worked through that. And I think that's really where the responsibility of like loving you, to me, my stance was loving you into security, right? Like, okay, that sucked. Let's do something different.
Well, I remember I was seeing my therapist because I'd gone through therapy. I take breaks. It's great to take breaks in therapy. Everybody should know that. But it occurred to me, I remember one session and she said, who do you have secure relationships with? And there was one person. And we were already in a relationship. And I was like, oh, wow. And that secure relationship piece, we talk about the attachment style, is that sense of safety. It doesn't mean everything's okay.
Right.
But it's security. It's like knowing the floor is not going to crack. And I hadn't had that before. And so when I say you loved me into security, like that's the least sexy part we talk about in relationships.
Consistency.
But your consistency, it's so hot.
Yay.
Did you ever think that would be something somebody would be like, oh, Karen is consistent?
I mean, I don't think so, but I think it's affirming in ways that I didn't know I needed.
Yeah.
I've always been the consistent, and I think that I can give that to autism too, that structure that I've always had. My mom has a structure, but like I've always found comfort in the structure, and I'm pretty consistent. Like what you see on social media, it's a portion of my life, but it's also like I'm that person.
But you're also so good. Like your heart is so good and it's pure, and you're not, even as you are humaning out here, you're not trying to harm people.
No. And I think that's also sometimes hard for people to believe with the life experience that they have.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can get demonized in ways too, because people just make assumptions as opposed to trusting that I'm really who I say I am.
Yeah.
And I know you have that experience too around your existence and being like this assertive, like people put you on pedestals.
Yes. I just want them to take me off of it.
You don't want to be on a pedestal.
Well, okay. So it's like 80-20, 90-10, right? Leo season, sure. Like that's appropriate. But the rest of the time, I'm actually a real person. Right?
That's why people don't take you seriously. They're like, oh, you're a diva, whatever.
Here's the thing, though, is whatever the word requires coming up, but like my standards, I will give that back tenfold.
Yes.
And I think that's important because it's reciprocated. And I think in non-monogamy, that's something I'm learning too, is like, like where does it all go?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we keep this here in terms of like it being stable and nourishing, but like
And
also
connected.
nourishing. Yeah. And so
where are we at? Let's start right before our marriage. That sounds like a great place to go. What was our understanding of our agreements? Because we believe significantly in agreements, containers, boundaries, all that. We'll talk about that. But what would you say your understanding of our non-monogamy look like?
Well, spoiler alert, we did not have the same understanding of what it would look like. But we didn't.
That's where I'm headed.
Yeah, but we didn't know we didn't have it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another point, is as much conversation and communication and processing. Like, I love to process feelings. I love to know what that feels like. But
it's good for me to do that. I do not love it.
It's even a bit for me. But so my understanding, we were monogamous, but not decidedly. Yeah, it wasn't like a we're not going to see anybody. We just were. We were living into that. We were celebrating it. We talked about being hierarchical if we ever do kind of open privilege. Up, having that couple's privilege where like this is the center of everything.
If you call me while I'm talking to anybody else, really, but like especially another partner or another person I'm talking to, like I click over for you.
Yeah.
Like I want to make sure we define those terms
or
too.
like if Karen has a date, this is like in the hierarchy piece, the couple's privilege, she has a date and having a hard day, and I'm like, can you just cancel? Like, that's shitty.
And it's couple privilege, and that's where we were.
And I also could say, like, I really need you, and then you get to make a decision, but it's a different come from. And so that was kind of my understanding, the veto power, all of that. And even, should I talk about the pause that you asked me to make now? Or?
Sure, yeah.
Because we're honest, there was a person that I had a crush on, and Karen knew from the moment it happened. I don't even know if we were together. Yeah, we were together.
Yes.
I was trying to timeline it.
Okay.
And you knew.
Yeah.
And we always talked about it, and she teased me and all these things. And one day you were like...
Well, one day you said, I'm going to reach out. You jumped in playing in somebody's inbox. And I said, where do you want that to go?
No, I didn't yet. I was talking about it.
No, you had. No. You said I reached out about something.
No. That's not what happened. I was trying to talk about, like, should I do this? And you're like, what do you want from this?
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know. I just want to back to
So she would have gone playing in somebody's inbox had I not said, what do you want from this?
I think you are...
I'm just making sure they understand what I'm saying, where I'm coming from.
I don't like your tone.
She was about to go jumping in the sandbox.
I don't jump into sandboxes.
She was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I was going to say hi. Let's hang out.
And I asked, let's tell the whole story.
Can we talk about how you got mad? Because
I did.
Karen was like, what do you want? What are you trying to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Because back to that, I just want space to explore. I don't know.
And I was like, you can do whatever you want. And then is what my response was.
I circled back. Karen hates when I circle back. And you were so mad at me. Why were you mad, Karen?
I was mad because what it made me do is really tap in and get in touch with my feelings around it. And in my idea of polyamory, or what I'm realizing that I had, it was a free-for-all. And it was like, we talk about it. And because we talk about it, to me, I don't have any restrictions. I don't have jealousy innately. Like, I'm not organically or like by nature jealous. No. No, you cannot use that word. Erin's trying to make natal a word, and we're not doing it. And we're just not. Fetch is not a word. It's not a word. Stop trying to make it a word. A thing. It is a word.
Natal jealousy.
Natal jealousy. I do not have
natal jealousy.
I can't stand you. I'm gonna use it for the sake of y'all understanding our dynamic, because there are just some hills you just don't stand on if you don't have to. So I do not have a lot of natal jealousy around anything really, and that's probably cheers to my avoidant, and cheers to being like left alone a lot as a kid in a full body cast in a hospital. I don't know. There were people there with me. My family was really loving. My godmother would just sit with me and stare at me before I was verbal. So, it's okay. I'm all right. But that was a very traumatic time. At 6 months, I don't remember, but my body does. Nevertheless, I had to get in touch, and I'm an internal processor. So things will happen, and my response to stimuli is to go quiet, to process, to come up, to address all of the ridiculous thoughts I have on my first initial reaction. And then...
Which looks like shutting down to me.
It does. And like, it also, I'm just processing.
Yeah.
And it looks like shutting down. And so then she's like, it's time to circle back. And it feels like that. And I'm like, okay, so you're basically asking me to move the process of my emotions quicker than I want. So she's like, so wait, let me get this straight. You're upset that I'm asking you to have emotions or process your emotions. I said, absolutely. We were out having a great day.
I think I was driving. We were on 315.
You were driving?
I was driving. I don't know why. This is why it makes it even more absurd.
What?
I know.
I was driving. Like, that's always the start of the story is I was driving.
Not every time.
Erin, you've drove one time when I was drinking.
Hyperbole. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is pure hyperbole, but we're going to move on for the sake
Erin
of
is,
the episode.
in most parts, in
like
a lot of
drive.
categories, a kept woman. Okay?
I love to be driven.
I like to drive. I trust myself. That's probably a control thing.
We were in the car.
Okay.
And you were mad because I
was pissed.
Invited you to fill your feelings.
Because we were just out having a Saturday or something.
It was still a good day for me.
We might even came from like wedding planning, okay? So
we did.
We did.
I got my makeup trial done that day.
And
I know the exact day.
I was driving. So also to that point, so I was frustrated about it. And so once that was out in the air, it was like, okay. And I came back probably, I don't know, an hour later, 20 minutes later, I don't know. And I said, I would like you to wait until we get married to pursue that. Especially if it was a situation where she don't know exactly what she want. I was like, can you just wait till we get married? Because we were 1 or 2 months out from probably a month out from our wedding.
Yeah.
And then 2 months out from our ceremony with our family and friends. So then I came back and I was able to make an ask. And that's a big thing for me because I don't typically make asks. I will endure. I will endure thinking that that's what I have to do for you to be happy. So there's this, at this point, okay, everything's on pause. I'm doing my work. I don't have anyone in the queue, if you will. So like I'm,
I rolled my eyes. I just made you know that.
What? That I didn't have anybody in the queue?
Right. You didn't. I know. I'm just rolling my eyes.
Why?
Because I know what's coming.
But why do you do that?
I don't roll my eyes.
I literally I'm standing over here. If you can imagine, this right now, all right? Me, minding my business.
Me
her
too. Minding my
coming in
business.
here, bringing some fuckery.
You are my business.
And then I am your business, but you bringing some fuckery.
Right now?
No, then. And then I'm like, I feel that. And then you're like, and then I say, I have no one in the queue. Yeah. And then you roll your eyes.
Yeah.
It's like maddening.
Because I know
I was doing nothing.
Tell the people
already.
What's to come, though. That's why.
What's to come? I'm in a relationship now with someone else. And
you have a harem.
That's to come. And I have a harem. We've progressed. We've done so much work. But what I will tell you is,
it's probably offensive.
What I will tell you is, I did not initiate this. I have looked back over my life, and this is partially because of autism, because I don't always get the social cues, and I tend to be fetishized. But again, y'all, the book, if I write the book, it's called, and Camille's over here nodding her head because she's seen it happen too. But if you the book is called Nobody Feels Sorry for Me. So in no way am I a victim because I'm on people's list. Like I'm not like mad about it or nothing. Now how they act around that's a whole nother conversation. But what I'm saying to you
You're minding your business. Nobody in the queue.
Business, nobody in the queue.
Married.
We're like, ooh, marriage is so sweet. Everybody's like, oh, I saw you got married. You're married. Your wife is great. Like that's how I experience the world outside there. They're like, you're so lucky you married Erin. I'm like, thanks, I know. But that was the experience. So we were in this monogamous situation, but we still talk about crushes, interactions, literally anything that happens, you'll hear it. Like if somebody were to be present in the space, fuck buddy, whatever, like it would be known. Like
there's no secrets.
There's no secrets still. So that's all happening.
And my crush still existed.
They haven't died. Great.
No, I mean like in my. That was really dark, Jared. Even though it was dark,
the way you said it. It's a trying time right now.
That was dark for you.
For me?
The dark in that way, but anyway, it still was in the background. I just think that's important.
Like
to
I
set
haven't shared enough of my dark thoughts with you then because it's dark in here.
Is it darker than mine? Okay.
I'm in the comedy. It's real dark.
So you're moving along, nobody in the queue, we're monogamish. And actually, I think this is an important piece. One night we were sitting on the couch, and I think this was like you're getting squirrely on the inside and maybe didn't realize it because it all plays in.
Is that the ADHD?
I don't know. But you were like, are we monogamous? I was like, no.
I think I was trying to really understand where you were at. I mean, there was no pressure for me to do anything. Yeah. But I really, in our communication, because, you know, polyamorous situations exist in the world, and we would just be like, would you be able to do that?
Yeah.
How would you feel about that? So that was kind of our polyamory, non-monogamy intake, and some of our friends are non-monogamous.
Here's an important point, though. Mm-hmm. Just because you're not dating or with multiple people doesn't mean you're not polyamorous or not monogamous.
I mean, it's the same with like pansexuality or bi. Like, just because I'm dating a woman doesn't mean that
it's still your relationship orientation.
Yeah, it doesn't change any of that, or who I'm attracted to or anything like that.
So minding our business.
Yep, and then
go to Georgia.
I am in a cohort of Black trans queer folks that are exploring African spirituality. And I go to a retreat. I have a very neutral and beautiful healing time, neutral around attraction time. I do notice that I'm up under this one person the whole time. And they, on the last day, so I would go and take cake breaks to go talk to my wife.
Cake with me.
Cake with her. So I would go take cake breaks and take a walk. And at one point, I think it was the last night, they said, and I have permission to tell these stories. They said...
I was just about to ask you.
Yeah, that. I do have permission. They actually said I could use their name, but in the interest of you not using names, I will not use their name. But if you see me out with them, Aaron knows about them. They're in a harem together. Anyway, so they're not in Columbus, so that's great. They're in D.C. But they said, you know, I'll go take a walk with you. I'm like, oh, I'm caking with my wife. I don't think anything of it. And I come back in, and there's two of them there. And I come back in, and the one person leaves. And I'm like, huh. And then we're sitting there, and then they throw their phone. Like, so I go do the cakewalk, come back in, and I'm like, hey, and chatting with them. And then one person is like, all right, I'm going to go to the bedroom to go to sleep. And I'm like, cool. We have multiple bedrooms. I don't know why that feels important now. But we all had our own bedrooms. And then my person throws their phone. And I'm like, is that your wife? Did they make you throw your phone? Mm-hmm. Did she make you throw your phone? And they say, yeah, right? And they kind of like do the Tinkerbell pout. And I'm like, all right. So we chat for a few more minutes, like it wasn't long at all. And they're going this way and I'm going that way. And they said something about having a crush on me, or you've been my retreat crush. And I'm like, because I know they have a wife, I'm like, it's been all above board, right? Because I have not said anything at this point. I thought it was just really tender, loving interaction. But we were up under each other, like just sitting next to each other, or
which
like...
I think we both experience intimate friendships in general. So that's probably why it didn't
trigger anything, no.
Because we individually, collectively have like deep friendships. So
yeah. And it was sweet and tender. And I think at one point I told them, you know, I would anchor them during a spiritual practice or a workshop that they were doing. And I didn't know, right? So at that point, it's night. I leave in the morning at like 6 a.m. And they say, I say it's all above board, right? And they go, and then they run into their room.
And I know about all of this. Scurry. Everything that's happened, I know as it's happening in real time.
So they run into the room. And so and at this point, we're still on WhatsApp because we don't even have each other's numbers. We see each other on Zoom every couple weeks with our cohort. No big deal. And so we start talking, and I'm like, yo, I'm going to use this. I don't know how long I'm going to use this, but I will ask people, like, yo, I'm autistic. I need you to spell it out for me. Because I'm just going along. I'm going to be that intimate, close friend, that connected friend. And then sometimes things will get weird. And I'm like, wait, how did it get here? Meanwhile, I've just been responsive to the energy. Like, it's cool. I'm not always thinking somebody want to, fuck me or something like that. Like, get in my pants. Like, I'm just like going along with it because it's enjoyable energy. And then when people start to want more access or want something more, and then they don't say that explicitly, then that's when it gets gray for me and I start feeling all kinds of weird. So I was like, what's going on? And they were just like, no, I would like to get to know you more. Like, I'm interested in you. Mm-hmm. And so then we started this, well, what is this kind of conversation? And so insert activation and challenge. right? And eventually we got to the point where we are joy friends. You want to talk about the escalation, relationship escalator? We all experience that. So
yes, but I'm not there in the story yet.
Heard it. Okay. So over, I think it was the course of maybe
2 hours.
To you.
That's what it felt like.
It was like 2 months, y'all. I'm telling y'all.
I think let's pause here or talk about like the activation, because when you first told me I was excited for you.
Yes.
Remember, like we were excited.
You were like,
I was like,
y'all are
you're
like
dating,
kicking, like
yeah.
y'all are kicking it. And I was like, stop, it's not like that serious, because I have to grow into that.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in getting to know you more. And that was, that was my start from it, because I was like, all right, there's already a really cool connection. Attraction is really fluid to me. So I knew I was attracted to them already and their energy. Mm-hmm. I just didn't know to what extent that attraction would play out.
Which is totally on track. Like, that's
on track
who you
for me.
are.
I'm very like demi-grayish when it comes to that. Moving from, it could be like the deepest friendship. Moving from that to anything else, that space is where I'm very, very demi.
Yeah. And so it was fun.
Demi is you have to have an emotional attraction to somebody before you're physically or sexually attracted to them.
Yeah. I think I'm getting that way as I get older, but another thing.
That may be a thing.
Or I'm just over the bullshit. But anyway, it was supportive. We talked about it. Like, things were good.
I just had a thought. I was like, hoeing has consequences. You know what I'm saying? Like, hoeing has consequences. So, like, as we get older, we're like, I don't want to have to.
That's so real.
Do all of this. Hoeing has consequences.
I don't even have it in me.
You mean I gotta go get protection? You mean I gotta go get tested? You mean I gotta go do all of this stuff? You still got a bill. Like, I gotta do all of this stuff to maintain my hygiene for a night. I don't know. Like,
and not just the hygiene, but like the scheduling, the planning, the conversation. Like, I'm gonna go to bed,
and we have to talk about it to some degree. Like, it's just yeah. So
hoeing has consequences. That's another episode, because I definitely had my hoeing days.
We did, and I'm glad you came to me experience. I'm not gonna lie about that. I don't give a hoot nanny about your body count. I'm gonna tell you that right now, because thank goodness, because we are too old to be having bad sex. Anyway, carry on with what you're saying. You hear that laugh? That means that Camille too knows. We are too old to be having bad sex. I'm gonna look right into the camera. We are too old. And I don't know how old you are, but you are too old to be having bad sex.
There's really no need to have bad sex ever.
Communication.
I mean, maybe the first time you're with somebody, it's hard. It's not bad. It's just like, But it's like when you cook. It's like when you make mac and cheese for the first time.
Why would you choose mac and cheese?
It is, but like maybe you didn't get it right.
Do like gluten-free, like why mac and cheese? Because of the sounds? Oh my God.
No, I wasn't.
That's what I was thinking. That's what people say.
I know. The first time you make a meal and you don't get it right, you could just never try again, or you add some more seasoning. So your first time with people, but like, I'm not going to keep eating bad mac and cheese. I'm going to change my diet. I think this has gotten away from us. Let's pull it back.
All right, so
that's a word though. Anyway, things were going great, and then we had a trip coming up. Yes. One in May. Yeah. It was about 2 months.
I mean, and when we say great, things were going well, but there was a lot of processing and work that's being done. Like, just understand that was a period of 2 months. Aaron says 2 hours.
Because it moved really. So this is in non-monogamy as a whole, like the pace in which things happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we knew to talk about this, but now we know for sure. Like, we have different paces and around the other person's nervous system.
I thought you were like doing too much or being extra originally when you were like, okay, let's talk through scenarios and boundaries.
But that was actually my nervous system trying to prepare and get ready. And I
was like, why are we talking about stuff that we don't know is going to happen?
But I needed to know. Yeah. I did it. But now I know that's why I was asking those questions.
And you also made a statement about something that you wished would have occurred.
I said I wished we would have
put a timeline.
Had an agreement to not have other partners in our first year of marriage.
What was also the reason why you said you didn't, aside from that one thing, because it was so disruptive. So talk about the impact that you didn't want to have while I'm talking about my feelings.
You mean feel my feelings?
Yeah.
It was disruptive because I did it I didn't know. And so this is how CPTSD lives inside of me. Is like I have this hypervigilance, and it can be quiet, but like I don't miss hardly anything anywhere ever. But especially around like moods and situations, tones of voice. If you blink your eyes twice versus once the first time, and like it really can be that intense. And
I'd be asleep. And she be, no, I'm just kidding. But no, there are times when I can sigh and she'll be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't even know yet. Like, I haven't even got the breath out. I call her a very sensitive motion sensor. She's a very, very sensitive motion sensor.
Yeah. And so this is happening and I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm trying to like, I wanted us to have a time to set containers, and we didn't because doing it in real time felt really uncomfortable for me. It did not feel safe. Things were moving quickly. I'm like, I don't have my seatbelt on yet. The door's not closed, like all these things. And Karen's like just living and existing and not I mean, like you are so good this time around. You got it right.
Yeah.
And all the ways from communication, like just everything. So it wasn't nothing that you were necessarily doing wrong. My nervous system was like on vacation. And so we weren't ready for all that. And it felt like it just kept going. And so then the disruption is shit. Now I'm activated and I wasn't ready to be. I was chill.
You were annoyed
married.
by it?
I was so annoyed. So annoyed. Because the trauma work shit's hard. This is hard work. And I was really mad that I had to re-engage when I didn't want to.
So my person and I had not planned to see each other. We had no plans of that. We were just communicating high level.
This is an important part too.
They are also therapists.
But you had verbalized that and we're not going to see each other. So this is an important piece.
We're not going to see each other. And so it was one of those things where I had an opportunity. I did see it from their Instagram, but it was an opportunity to go to DC Black Pride and be an author on a panel. And I have some books. So I was like, that would be really cool.
Where can they find your books?
You can find my books on Amazon. Grounded is on Kindle, I think. It's
on
Grounded
the website as well, right? If people go to your social media pages.
Oh, yeah. If you go to cultureofview.com, I also have a link tree that I will put in the episode that has all these episodes for the Culture of View, the Culture of View on Instagram, and Amazon. Yeah. Karen Marie. So yeah. So I go there, and as we're planning this begins to be really the start of the first fumble, if you will, of our situation. And my first fumble, we planned it. I'm having Erin come with me. At this point, my person is working it out with their wife on what this looks like, and something happens there that we had a plan. So we had a plan to all four of us, meet up and go eat. And then I was going to have a date night with my person, and that was going to be it. Like, that was going to be the thing. We were there 3 nights, I think, and so that left us a night to have just to ourselves as well.
That was a good night.
That was a great night. And then something happened from their part that I'm not going to necessarily share, but just know there was a violation of my personal boundary that they didn't know about, that was a violation, which is why I'm still in a relationship. So around that, don't really dismiss people or anything like that. But it was something that did have to be a discussion.
I'm a quick cutoff.
She's a quick cutoff. But like for me, I want to make sure that when I do cut you off, it's done. You know it. I'm not unclear about it. But I wanted to see more. I wanted to understand more, and I wanted to give another chance around that. So I changed the plan.
Hold on. What? So we were all going to hang out, all 4 of us, which is a style of like kitchen table polyamory. And basically you can essentially all sit around the kitchen table, all partners, relationships, and like it's okay. So we were like, this is what we practice. We're kitchen table polyamorous.
We know this.
We're not.
We're not.
We can be, but
Yeah.
So something happened. There was some tension there. That's why the plan changed for
That's
like
why
that
the plan
Friday
changed.
night.
Yes.
And you all went on a date instead.
Right.
Because
So
I don't think the date was planned
No,
initially.
it wasn't.
Yeah.
The date was originally going to be Saturday evening, and Friday was going to be the night we all got together and did dinner.
And I think what I want to share here is there was a lot of talking between us around the date, parameters, boundaries, what time, what's going to happen on the date. Like I had to do a lot of self-regulation because I also wanted you to have that. I wanted you to be able to see them because you didn't think you were going to. You were excited. Like I gave you some tips on, I gave you some tips. What I give you tips about? How to romance.
How's she gonna tell me how to pull somebody? Like, anyway, okay. Obviously,
Romance.
I'm doing a good job. I'm just gonna pat myself on the back there. I'm doing an okay job. Thank you.
I give you romance tips and all that.
I listen to you.
But the point is, I was engaged and supportive while also doing my own work.
And you were also, you held space for me too.
Sure did.
Once that happened, I talked to you and you held space for me. What do you need from me now? And then I brought the question back up about, well, what do you want to do now? And you were like, I don't want to be a part of that decision.
Yeah. For the next day, for them to attend something. And
you also said for the rearrangement that you really didn't want to do any of the rearrangement.
And the one thing that I would learn as part of my own journey of healing, I guess, or transformation is like to really listen to myself and know what I'm feeling in my body. So is it a soft yes, a soft no, hard yes, hard no? With me, my CPTSD shows up and me overriding my own boundaries. And so there's a lot of stuff I have to like go through. And I finally realized I don't want to make this decision.
Right.
And it wasn't avoidance. It wasn't my decision to make, first of all, but also,
grounded.
And I think I also need some time for things. I'm a little slower processor, but I was like, I need you to make that decision. And I also had to say, this is not a setup. Remember? Because you were like, it's perfect. It would have been a perfect setup.
It wound up. Anyway, so here's the thing. Things can easily feel like a setup for me because of my past trauma and history in relationship. Like things can feel like a setup because I am very literal, and because my trauma response is to literally understand every nervous system in the room. And I have typically been aware as soon as I walk into a room where everybody's at in the room. That makes me a great facilitator. But like when in relationship, that makes it hard because now am I fawning? Am I enduring? Am I shrinking? Like all of those questions become present in that space. And so I made an executive decision at that point to not do the group dinner because I still didn't have a ton of details on exactly what the violation was. I just knew that my person was protecting me. And I think if I, go back and do it differently, I would have asked more questions, right? Or I got more clarity on exactly what happened so I could make maybe a different decision. But anyway, so we go there.
Say, I actually did want you to make that decision too. I think sometimes we have to fake things so that's the right thing to do. And it wasn't about it being the right. Like I genuinely wanted you to make that decision. But I had to know I was going to be okay with whatever you decided before I could even get there.
Sure.
I just think it's important for people to know that behind the scenes work sometimes.
I totally agree. And so I wound up choosing to not do the group dinner, to do one date night with them. And then that was it. And then have them come to the book.
That was the decision.
That was the decision.
Too, yeah.
And that was a decision that Aaron wanted me to make. That was I'm in a place where I'm the author or I'm the person. And we do a really good job, I feel like, of balancing when we hold space and take space for each other because we both do a lot in the community. And some events, I'm your armor bearer and space holder. And some events, you're mine. And so it was one of those things where I also wanted them to be there. So they were there and they had a chance to meet Aaron in person, and it was very awkward.
That's what we're gonna call it.
You would call it some things that I feel like are ageist.
No one else is laughing, Karen.
When they hear it, they'll say
ageist. That part wasn't ageist.
Disrespect.
It was disrespectful
to you.
I thought you would not have acted that way either because you know better.
I don't know. We're different. We're just different. And
Can we say what it is? So people
say what it is.
Essentially, we're at this event and they sat clear on the back, and which is whatever. I'm up here talking to Karen. We're packing up, getting things ready. We see our friends there. Apparently, I'm being me. I'm seemingly extroverted. Mm-hmm. And Karen had to invite them up to say hello to me. And
they're anxious.
They averted eye contact completely.
I'm
like doing this, writing, and they come up, and I was like, hi. And then I stood up. Am I
in
taller?
all your regal glory. Yes, you're taller than both of us. They're shorter than me.
My life. And they did not look at me and said hi.
You're so scary, Erin.
Just be quiet. Let's just let them hold the silence so they know what we experience.
And I said...
And I'm like...
All right, well, I'm going to take them to their car.
I was like, good to meet you. Good to see you.
And that's the end of the day. I said awkward. Camille just said awkward. And then they went off. And then we had one of the best nights ever in D.C. And then the flight the next day, there was a gap because I was going to Florida for work and Erin was going back home. And in my infinite wisdom, I decided that it was a good idea in the time between to connect with their wife and them at the airport. I made this decision in a vacuum. I'm just going to say that now. I know my wife, and this is one of those, if y'all know the disc, where I asked for forgiveness rather than permission. So I did that because at this point, like I said, I still don't have all the information around the violation that occurred. I just know a violation occurred. I didn't know to the levels that it would impact me. And I knew there was some feelings about that. And I was just like, I don't want them to think that, I don't want my person's wife to think that I don't want to engage with them. And you even said, like, once you calm down, you even said, like, I know this about you. Mm-hmm. Like, this decision makes sense.
You see, I'm like already like back in like, whatever, some bullshit.
Don't zoom in here. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is some bullshit. But it was my decision. I made it in a vacuum, and it was like 45 minutes. And then I told Erin getting into
Here's the text.
The airport.
I have something to tell you.
And I don't want to tell you.
And I don't want to tell you. I was like, tell me. And you told me.
Yeah, I did tell you.
It was text. I think I was like, what the fuck?
Because I was on a plane, and so I was like texting you. And then my tooth also chipped at that point.
It sure did. But, I'm not saying anything to do with it.
Yeah, my tooth chipped at that point. That was a pretzel, you know? Like, how sad. Anyway.
How many? I think you had 3 voicemail messages or recorded. Oh, I was heated. And I don't want people to think...
I had Wi-Fi, so I was fully invested in the conversation.
And I don't think... It's not about the permission part, and I think that's important to know, because we don't control each other. Like, we really both do what the fuck we want. Karen feels controlled by me, but I don't... That's not ever how I want things to be. That's just her stuff.
Erin, that bossy Virgo moon, I don't ever want to understate the magnitude of it. Erin states her opinions. As facts. Erin also makes no lack of clarity on how she expects to be treated, on the things that she finds disrespectful or ridiculous. And I know her deeply. And it's inconvenient often for others because I also like to just address stuff and keep it moving. And my trauma, and you like to process things in real time. And all of these things, like we just said it this morning, on paper, our activated selves are not good together. So I was upset, because we had said goodbye, had this really great night and this great time. And like that was it. So back to this, like, caught off guard. I don't like surprises. And part of our agreements in our non-monogamy and polyamory is like, no surprises, as much as you can control it. Obviously life happens, but like if you can prevent a surprise, because for me it's disruptive and I have to reorganize because my guard is down, because I feel secure here, because I'm like trusting, my guard is down. So it was a surprise nature of it. I also was like, what the fuck? Because this person had already disrupted in my mind, not your person, the person's wife. Yeah, had already disrupted our whole trip to begin with. And I was like, they don't get to just control things. I'm like, you just went and did whatever the fuck you wanted to do. Like, and then it was. And that's where I just had to listen to her. I want everybody who's in a relationship with someone like this. You have to understand sometimes when to listen to her. I mean, And that's the thing. I think in apology sometimes it happens like people don't just take it. Like, I'm gonna take it.
You owned your decision,
Yeah.
but I also was like, and then y'all saw each other again. Did you hug? Did you kiss? Like, it was like I wanted all the details.
I said, I'm not doing that with you.
No, you told me exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't say it out loud. Maybe in your head you did. Now that I know.
Yeah.
But I was outside pacing. I was leaving voice messages. But it was just like,
and I had to tell you. And normally I'm the hothead, y'all. Like normally I'm the one that elevates quickly. My tone elevates quickly. I puff up if I feel, threatened in any way. Like not threatened like violently, but like threatened.
Jack.
Yeah, Jack. So,
but at this point so it was going on and there was recorded messages. And then because I was hurt, I felt like there was not full on betrayal, but it was just like, this was outside of our plan. And let's get back to this idea of containers and boundaries.
mm-hmm.
Those are what helped me feel safe. I think that they help us feel safe in general. And to do things outside of that was really what it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like them and their wife were safe for us. And
mm-hmm.
not in a like they're trying to harm, but like I felt like they were ready to be in the big leagues with us, for lack of a better word, right? But it was just like, this is some bullshit. They need to get their stuff together because we're getting our stuff. We were good. And then we did finally talk on the phone. And at one point, you're like, I'm going to need you to watch your tone.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
You ain't gonna tell. I mean, you can be upset all day long, but when you're addressing me directly, I need you to watch
because
your
we
tone.
don't talk to each other crazy if we don't. We try our best not to.
We try our best.
So fast forward, everything is fine now.
Everything is fine now. I've seen them. We went back to D.C., which was interesting. It was an interesting time. Mm-hmm. We went back to D.C. pretty quickly to go to the White House.
It's such a weird thing to throw in.
Like,
we were invited to the White House for Pride season.
Yeah, we were just hanging out on the front lawn with Joe and
Jill.
Dr. Jill was
there, yeah.
Jill.
We did it,
that's
Jill.
really who we were there for. Dr.
But you didn't
Jill
see them that weekend.
Kamala. We didn't see Kamala that weekend.
No, you didn't see your person that weekend.
I did not, and that was a conscious choice. I think there were times that I could have. I don't know how that would have worked, but I was pretty...
And I was playing around with it, being okay with it, because I never said don't.
I could have asked them to come. I think we were there. We were originally supposed to be there one night. I was coming from Atlantic City, and you were coming from Columbus. Mm-hmm. But we were only supposed to be there one night, but that was when they had the whole fog situation going on. And so we were outside in D.C., so they went from a Thursday night to a Saturday afternoon. And so we were in D.C. from Wednesday night until... it was Thursday afternoon. We were in there from Thursday afternoon to Sunday.
These details don't matter, I don't think.
Okay. All right. So we were there for like 3 nights.
Basically, there could have been opportunities for you all to see each other. It wasn't. I didn't ask you not to. I was like, "Do you want to?" So this is back to this honesty. We literally talked through and processed things. The decision was made for Karen not to, which I think that was a good decision.
Yeah, I did a mulligan, and I was like, "Let's just have a weekend in DC, just you and me," and I think that's wise for now.
Yeah. And so
I've seen them twice since. So we're moving up on.
And this was another thing we had to talk about because we check in we are always checking in, but we have a standing check-in on Sundays. And it's not it's like, how is this going here between us? How's it with other people? Finances, all the things. We do our calendars.
Yeah, we do calendar,
we do that. And so we had multiple conversations of just always processing what was coming up. And I think this is where my understanding of attachment style, my survivor vigilante, how she shows up, how I'm impacted by, CPTSD, depression. Like, I think being able to have that openness before we got here was really supportive because we were able to I know in my mind that this is not a thing, but over here, my system is like, it's a thing, it's a thing, it's a thing. But the one thing that I think stands out around the not seeing each other for the rest of the year, and I remember I made a request, stop saying stuff like that, because what happens in my brain is it gets in this file,
it locks it in.
It locks it in. And it's Karen didn't promise it. I didn't ask her to promise that. None of that happened, but because you said it. I would say
we don't know if we're going to see each other for the rest of the year. I don't know if that's wise or whatever. And we're both non-binary, and I think that actually is important, and we've talked about that. We're both non-binary, so we're very fluid. around how we move. So I might say on one given day, and that's not to say that it's out of my integrity or anything, but if I'm not a specific yes or no, and I'm somewhere in the middle with maybe, I'm not sure or whatever, that I don't know, like I've learned how to say that as well. But like sometimes that means that you don't know what's going on, and I don't know what's going on.
And I'm actually okay with the I don't know, because I don't think you knew that you could say I don't know. And
I think that's true.
And most people think that that's the gray area. So I think people, I wonder if this is true for you, feel like you have to say yes or no, but actually say you're not sure. Because that's also an answer too. But I had to make that request, like, can you like be mindful of those things? Because they did have opportunities. And I was like, y'all said, great, more disruption, you know? And so all these things were happening.
And so all of that context to give you all, because we're going to go into a couple topics real quick, but all of that context to give y'all around the fact that now we have, they were on social media together, but Aaron has blocked them.
This is I think
this is a good part of the conversation.
I don't know what to say. Like, I'm so sensitive to energies and just orbiting and all of that. I don't even enjoy social media as a whole, but so blocking them was not in a mean way. It was not like, I was like, I'm done here. It was like back in, after that stuff happened in May, the airport. I'm just remembering that I titled those messages Airport Fuckery Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. That's how they're saved in my thing, Airport Fuckery. But that was my way of like, I'm not doing this. Y'all figure this out. We switched to more of a model of parallel polyamory, which is like this coexisting, but like not the friendly, let's all hang out.
You were out of it.
Yeah. So it was so grounded. Yeah. So it was just like, no, thank you.
And now we have a group text called
Karen's Harem that I suggested.
Yes, she changed the name. Originally, it got to a point where
I even brought the group text. Yeah,
something happened. Yeah, and my person was like, "Oh my gosh, I know we don't really kick it like that as a crew, but I wish this was something that you could just throw in a group chat." And I mentioned that, and Aaron was like, "I actually don't have any feelings around that." I was like, "Are you sure?" Because there were a couple work situations, and I was like, I wanted to put them in there so I didn't have to copy paste, do all that.
But we sat with it. And the other thing we've learned in this is, for my processing, is I usually need a couple of days after an event or after a decision's been made to check in, because my nervous system loves to pop up like, oh, y'all think you're good? Okay, let me throw this in there. Right. And so, but we talk about that, and Karen also knows, like, let's check in a couple of days before big decisions sometimes. But even with the chat, I was like, let's just sit with this.
And then something happened that I wanted to tell both of them in real time. And I, of course, was like, I'm going to do it today sometime. And you were like, okay. And then so there's that. The things are good. There's a lot of
I don't have any
space holding, and there's a lot of love there. It's actually a really beautiful space where we get to talk astrology. They're both therapists, like, so it's real deep. And we fully understand that we communicate at a ridiculously insane level compared to what people are probably used to in their relationships. So really none of this is suggesting that you should do anything, but we're telling you about how we got here. And so anything else around that, the current state now, we did this talk therapy.
Play therapy. Well, should I talk about I have a situation.
Okay.
Situationship.
I don't know how much.
There's a song by Snow and Allegra, how you say that, the situationship.
Yeah,
I hate situationships. I think they're stupid. But I think what's important is there was nothing that we talked through everything to get to this point, and it was a lot of my own work, but Karen had to do work too on herself and around things. And so that depth of honesty and truth telling is just cannot be. It's very raw. And I had to check in, like, do I have feelings or charge about this? Okay, why? And so getting behind it, it's constant. And now I just don't have any charge, or I almost forget that relationship exists, because I'm so like, oh, okay, yeah. But insert in, remember the person that was put on pause.
What do you want to say?
They insert into the picture. I did reach out one day, and then I threw my phone, and I made Karen check my text messages to see if they responded, and they did. And then we got into a situationship. Yeah. We have a deep connection.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're figuring it out right now.
Yeah.
But that brought up some things for you.
It sure has. It sure has. So at one point, Aaron was like, all right, we were sitting at the table and it was like, if what's your vision? And that was really the first time I had been asked my vision throughout the course of my life in monogamous relationships where, something went left or maybe I exhibited signs of polyamory. I've had friends call me in on, maybe you're actually just polyamorous. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where it was like, all right, let's figure this out. What is my vision? And it's the first time I've been asked that.
We should post a picture of it with the podcast in some way. Because we use, I have these adorable rhino salt and pepper shakers I got from an antique store and coasters and, just laid it out because I'm very visual too. But the reason we got there, if you're okay sharing about this, is once I had a person that I was like into, I'm still really into them. And we had that new relationship energy, all normal, nothing outside of it. Karen has been supportive from day one and was like, wait a minute, where's my wife?
Yeah, because here's the thing you need to understand about my wife, is you are omnipresent.
Thanks. Thank you.
And you are incredibly intense. And I mean, there's a love about
Scorpio
that.
rising.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I'm a Leo. Like, I feel loved. I feel loved more than not. I feel attended to more than not. Now, we'll go through a whole day and we will not. And I think ADHD can get the high five for that because we may not exist to each other for 6-7 hours.
You forget that you have a wife sometimes.
That is not true. I talk about you all the time, even when I'm facilitating.
But you forget that, like, I'm here. Like, you do talk about me. I think it's more of a theory. Sometimes, like, oh, I haven't talked to my wife all day.
Permanence is wild. I don't know what else to tell you.
I know you love me.
But then I'll be like, oh, yeah, I haven't texted my wife. And then I'm, like, going home. Like, I don't forget very long because I go home and we live together.
We're fine. It's absolutely fine.
What?
My attention.
Yeah, her attention. I was very aware that her attention was gone. And I think...
it wasn't gone. It shifted. It was different. Mm-hmm. Because you were used to, the way our dynamic is like, hey, and you'd be like,
let me come to you.
And then it would be like,
I'm coming in from work or coming in from wherever I am, or even if I work at home, there has to be.
When I'm not here.
Yeah, you used to say that. You'd be like, you want me all the time.
When you want me when you want me.
And that's true.
Attention wise, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I'm like low-key a workaholic. I love the work I do. It's meaningful work to me.
So when she wanted it, I wasn't necessarily available.
And I would be like, wait. And I think that's one of the things about polyamory that has really shocked me is the invitation to go more deeply within myself. Because there were a couple times since you've started talking to this person that I have, you've started talking to this person and I have felt like I needed you or them, the person I was, I'm dating. And it was like, I ain't got nobody. And so the invitation was obviously to go deeper within myself. And I like polyamory as an invitation to go deeper within. Interesting concept.
So yeah, we've had to like kind of work through that. And there were tears. And I think it was tears because it was frustrating. And I'm like, this is what you wanted. This is how you wanted it to be. And Karen was like, wait a minute.
It is.
This is what I wanted. And that's how we got to the place of like visualizing like what that looks like. And then what emerged, and I think just even last Monday I brought it up, is grief.
Yeah. So we are talking about grief and the grief of your relationship as you knew it. And people would say, why?
Then why do that?
Then why even put that pressure or that strain on your relationship?
Which is a fair question, whether it's individually or, collectively. But I think it goes back to the why. Why, and we have to center that. Why non-monogamy? Also, like other people are in the picture now, so you don't just end something.
No.
Unless you have to. But for me, the grief, I think that what I figured out, I remember sitting at the table one day in the dining room and I said, the connection that we had, it was so casual. So yes, we do things intentionally, but I didn't realize some of those like non-scheduled, spontaneous moments of just watching TV or in the house, like, because what we were doing is figuring out our time. How do we split our time? I have new relationship energy. I'm bathing in it. You all are getting more settled. They're long distance. How does our free time get spent? How's the time for ourselves? And then we realize like, oh, there's
less time here.
That open neutral space wasn't there. And yeah, I think an answer could be like, well, get rid of everything. But like, no, it just means we have to be more intentional. But it really was like,
well, I mean, around politics, my people politics anyway, like I don't dismiss people unless there's irreparable harm anyway.
Which I was never an ask.
No.
There's only one person I've asked you to do that with.
And I still managed to. Anyway. But yeah.
We're fine.
We're fine.
But and then last week, what was the grief that I noticed?
Because we were both in separate places of the nation. You were in Denver.
This was before then, though. It was like last Monday. Because me having a person has shifted our dynamics. And I think for you, it's realizing ways in which maybe, I don't want to say took for granted in a negative way, but like you like leaned into and rested upon. And it was like, oh. Yeah,
that was just my existence.
Yeah.
I knew it to be the way it was.
Right.
And now that's different.
Right. And I was actually afraid when I started talking to this person because I was like, whoa, this is a lot. And I love my wife a lot. Like, my heart is big in the capacity. And I was like, is this okay? Is it okay that I have
say that
this for somebody? Yeah. I'm like, are you sure you're good?
I'd be like, I'm okay.
Yeah. And it's so transformative and beautiful on so many levels to where I was like, abundance. Like, this is all for me. But there was a shift there. And I forget exactly what I said, though, what the other grief was. It must have been that bad. But there was something around the intimacy of, I really don't remember.
That's great.
That is great. An intimacy around like communication. And there was something around that. But that grief is real. And when you went to visit recently, I was actually fine because I then got to spend time
with your person.
And it was great. And I was like,
I'm a bigger fan just by way. I do realize that you being in a relationship has also given us a lot of wins, right? Like it opens you up to like what your true capacity was. Once I shared what my vision looked like and you shared what you thought it would be, but then you were on board with the vision.
Well, because we also had this conversation, the difference between being polyamorous and non-monogamous. Yeah. And I was very...
And like in an open relationship.
Yeah, I was very decidedly non-monogamous. And the difference, at least with my understanding, polyamory, many loves basically. So it's having intimate relationships. It's not just sexual. It's more than friendship. Like it's a love relationship, a lover in that way. I think open relationships typically is almost a don't ask, don't tell, or like, go do you, it's fine. But there's not that emotional connection. Non-monogamy for me is like a mixture of those two. Because we don't do the like don't ask, don't tell thing here for multiple reasons. I just don't think it's healthy. But my nervous system couldn't handle that.
Yeah, and we also, like, there are some things that stay sacred, right? Like, there are some things
that's important, too.
That stay sacred in those relationships because, moving from the grief, we started to look at each different thing. And so we'll walk through them. We started to look at each different thing.
I want to talk about the difference between the monogamy.
Yeah.
You need to remember that.
Yeah.
So
I got you.
The non-monogamy for me was like a mixture of the two. But I decidedly did not want to be in a, like, actual relationship with feelings.
She said that prior to, and I knew exactly what was going to happen when she started talking to this person.
Well, I had another vision, and I was like, I'm non-monogamous. I don't intend to have deep feelings for another person. The dating, I don't.
She's in the Maleficent stage of her life right now.
Maleficent, what does that mean?
Maleficent with the cold heart. Her heart was black.
Oh.
I mean, take it as deeply as you want. But you were like, I don't want to have feelings.
No,
I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
Ice box where my heart used to be.
Maleficent has a black heart. Literally, that's the
song
movie.
Playing in the background. Yeah, and for good reason, because it's silly. Modern day dating sets us all up to have insecure attachment, and I've done so much work. I'm like, no, thank you, and then. Here she is with feelings.
And I'm like, I knew this was going to happen.
Really
she's like, did you really know? I'm like, no, I knew
That's why you asked us to wait.
That's why I asked you to wait, my knowing from now, to then. But like there was a part of me, and this is a question that has been in discussion with some of my friends around, there is some part of me, they were like, are you upset that she didn't get it until now?
You're having those conversations.
I won't. I'll tell you who it was. Like, it's not a big deal.
Upset?
I got asked this twice. I think it wasn't a lot. But am I upset that I didn't feel, that there was so much tension, and now that you got somebody, it's like it's fine. And I think there was a part of me that could have stayed there. And found resentment or whatever, but I was like, I've been wanting to be here. Why wouldn't I just be present here whenever you arrived? with me on that thing.
And I think
right?
the vision was never, it was you, because we communicate so differently sometimes. I don't know that you actually had your vision articulated verbally. I think you knew in your heart and in your mind, but it was never like, this is full. And so I don't even know you knew like until you saw it happening.
And I was like, I'm not going to be mad at her for getting it. She got it.
Yeah.
And like she fully understands it and I fully understand it. Like you said, I didn't
Which
fully
allowed
understand
me
it.
to also go back in certain situations, be like, oh, I'm having this experience now. I now understand what you were going through. I understand a lot. I understand the world through my own experiences in general. And I was able to say like, I'm really sorry if I was hard in that space or if this hurt you, like, because I had a felt sense of it and I understood.
And you also acknowledged the gymnastics or the coordination of me keeping that for a time. There was a time that I kept that away with the parallel where I kept that relationship away from you.
That was grief too. That's what another place of grief when we moved to more parallel model is
we're best friends.
This is like literally my best friend. And I've never had that experience in a romantic relationship this deeply. And there was a part of our friendship that didn't get to exist because
I couldn't tell you about it.
Right. And I didn't want to
hear it. Yeah.
And that was actually
hard.
probably the hardest or the heaviest grief I experienced here because like
I missed you. Yeah,
my friend.
Yeah, like, I wanted to tell you about
and I
things that were happening.
Question.
Yeah,
and I think the side note I'll add to, as you mentioned before, like around the privacy, we hold our relationship sacred, but we also hold our other relationships sacred, and so. Not every detail gets shared. We don't share text messages with each other. We don't screenshot. Like it's always high level, need to know. And we're really clear on the things that we need to know. So if you're having sex, okay, I know that that's happening. I don't need to know every single time. I don't want to know. And I don't need the details. Right.
But as a best friend, it's like the first time it's like, oh my God, what happened? How was it? And so that finding that balance of like, what do I want to tell my best friend?
Yeah.
What can I tell my best friend that then hopefully she doesn't integrate into anything being, because there was a lot of conversation also about what do they do for me that you don't.
Yeah, and you've asked the same.
Yeah.
And I think if we get to that would be interesting to talk about. But, and so we hold those things sacred because they are separate individual relationships. And so we're not going to breach confidentiality in that way. But the vision, it's just really beautiful. And, in terms of like getting it, I don't know that I did not get it. I don't know that I even challenged you on it. I think for me, it started to unfold really quickly when I'm like, whoa, we've been married 6 months. Like what's happening here? So it started to unfold really quickly because I think we're both similar in our big vision for what's possible in the world.
Yeah.
But until I experienced that, like I can love and be loved in such deep ways, like I believed it, but I had the experience of it. And I think along with my own work to continue deepen in my own radiance and the growth and healing, being in a relationship with them also healed a part of my heart that I didn't even know needed to be healed. So that part that was icy and like, no, thank you, I'm not doing that. It was like, oh, wait a minute. So as my heart softened, my heart softened. And so the things that I thought were needed for boundaries and structures and containers or whatever it is, like I softened. It's amazing.
It really is beautiful. And it's been beautiful to watch. So if I ever have the choice, which I mean, my default is typically irritable. I would say irritable more than angry. Like I'm typically irritated, generally by people doing dumb things or asking me to do dumb things or doing things that I don't want to do. That's my general state of being. But in this case, it was actually beautiful for me to watch us wrestle with all these concepts. So around jealousy, around hierarchy, around couples privilege, around stating your needs and desires clearly and asking for what you need as opposed to assuming that somebody's just going to know. Because my default trauma response is to make sure everybody has what they need, sometimes to the detriment of myself, but I'm going to make sure you have what you need. But now I have to say my wants, my desires. If I need you at a certain time or a specific time, now I have to say that explicitly. And that's uncomfortable for me.
It is. And we do check in around like, hey, I'm going to go talk to so-and-so. Is this okay? It's not about permission. It's about honoring our own space. Or if something has changed and what the plan was, we do that. do you think we should probably come back to that hierarchy and couples privilege because we have kind of evolved around that?
We have evolved around that, and we have evolved around like time and everything. What do you want to talk about right now?
3 days in a row.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think
originally when we talked, what were our...
In terms of overnights, no more than 3 nights in a row.
And in my head, y'all, like I was thinking that if it was like 4 nights, because obviously my person is out of town, but if her person who is local, I was like, if you're with them 4 nights in a row, then you're spending more than 50% of your week with them. And so in my head, it made sense to give it 3 days, because then it's like I'm still top dog, I guess. I don't know, but we revisited that too.
But on our previous relationship that we were in, that was how things were set up. Mm-hmm. And so though that extra 24 hours meant something to, it just meant things. And then primary, secondary, all of that. Mm-hmm. And so, we revisited this idea of relationship or the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And there isn't one outside of like necessity, but it's like, because we're family and we're anchor partners or nesting. I don't even say primary. You're my wife. We're anchored and nested. And I remember when I was sharing with my person too, I was like, there's no primary, secondary here. You're an important person in my life. Right. When we make decisions here, we check in with our other people, like, how does this work for you? Right. And so, whereas if it was in a hierarchical space or that couples privilege, is like, this is what we decided. Yeah. And like,
that's not how we operate. No. We both wouldn't deal well with that individually. So why would we make other people deal with that?
Not fair.
And I think one time it was around the conversation and the phone call. If Aaron calls me, should I, because for a while, just with expectations and my natural existence, trauma response way of being like, my wife gets what she needs, like I am that way. And I think that's kind of a binary socialization that we get is like happy wife, happy life, mass femme, whatever. But I'm very, in my desires, needs, and the way that I like to be treated, I'm very feminine around my needs. And so, but it was one of those conversations where Aaron called and I was on the phone with my person and I answered and I hadn't left the house or something. And Aaron's like, "What are you doing? Your car was outside. I was confused and She wanted a fact check.
I don't like your tone here either. What happened was we discussed our day. I was half asleep when Karen was telling me because Karen, like I said, starts the middle of conversation sometimes.
First of all.
So you were outside. I love you so much. And your car was there and I was confused. Like, did I mishear what the plan was? That's what happened.
I know. That's just what happens in my head. And I was trying to get through to the end. I'm sorry.
Carry on.
All right. So she was fact checking and I clicked over in a hustle. Hey, what's going on? Right? And so that's how I'm answering the phone. And then we had this conversation around, should that be the case? And I actually said, well, logically, we actually should stay on the phone with them because we don't live with them. Mm-hmm. So around that privilege, that shouldn't exist. And so then we just started like doing that with all these kinds of scenarios where it's like, is it really important to have that? Like, what is the fear?
Because it is, and here's the thing, boundaries, constrictions, containers, all of that, ultimately, we have them to keep ourselves safe. And the less safe we feel, or the more worried about threat, we're going to have more boundaries and structures and agreements. And sometimes you need more. I don't think where we are today, who knows, in a couple of years, there could be a different situation. Right. There might be a time when we're like, let's not add anybody. Like,
we're married. We're spending the rest of our life together. There's going to be iterations of our relationship that are specific to that time frame. Mm-hmm. And thinking about that also, like, am I concerned that Erin's relationship with her person is too deep? If that's a concern, like, then we should skip that, right? Because what is in me? Like, do I have to step up or no? Like, no, like, that we can have a conversation. And I want you to, the truth is, at the end of it, for me, I want you to experience every good thing that you can. Yeah. I want you to experience every depth of connection that you can.
Same.
All we have in this life when people leave, and this is a little preachy, but like all we have in this life is how we made other people feel and the experiences we have and the legacy. Maybe hopefully you have some sort of legacy that you leave where people, continue to say your name There's that
Mm-hmm.
Latine concept culturally of like you die twice. The first time is when you die, and then the second time is when people stop speaking your name.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hope there's a legacy there, but like that matters. That matters how we make people feel and the depth of living that we get to do. And so I never want to stop that for you.
Yeah. And I love that about you. And that's probably why we can exist the way that we do, because we both want that for each other. We both want each other. I mean, I appreciate what's available to you in your relationship. It's stuff that there's some things that I can't provide just from a place of like identity and gender identity and expression. And it's okay that I can't provide that.
And we had to get there. We had to talk about like, well, what's coming up for me right now? Because there's been times when if Aaron has something going on, or if they were not necessarily in conflict, but if they were, you know, still figuring things out because they're still really relatively new, it was one of those things where it was like, I've said that. I said it, I think, last night or 2 days ago. We were both out of town. And I was like,
Denver.
I was like, I'm going to be petty right now, but I really want to hear about, I mean, let's keep it real. Aaron, like, we're not doing stuff that's little. Okay, we're not doing stuff that's little. So Aaron, I go to the YWCA Activators and Agitators event. She's on the video. Like, it's not like we just out here, you know, having meetings with, I don't know. Like, my whole point is
outside eating chips.
No. Like, we're literally like on the big screen and doing some things. And she had this panel at a freaking conference that they fly her in there and have her be there for. And she's talking about executive rest, which obviously I care about. We have a business together about rest. And so I care about this. And I'm like, as soon as the OhioRestCollective.com. But as I am, you know, getting out of there, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving here. I'm going to call you. She has no concept of what time that looks like. I didn't give her a time. I know that.
Because I time traveled.
Because, yeah, she went to another time zone, which is another podcast. That could probably be a whole podcast of what happens to those hours. But anyway, she doesn't know the time. And I'm like, I'm just being petty right now. And it was so light. And I was just like.
Because I didn't answer when you called.
Yeah, you didn't answer. And then you texted me back like, I'm on the phone. Is that okay?
I didn't even say, is that okay?
You said something about, is that fine or something? I'll call you back after. And I was like, ugh. And I was like, fine. And then I sent a voice message to explain my disdain in that moment. But it was so cute. It was like light, sweet, tender.
And they better not have gotten to hear about the thing before. Yeah. Like, it was.
Because I wanted to be the first to hear it. I have been holding the space all day. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to be the first to hear it. And so, like, there are going to be times when there are petty wants, petty desires, petty thoughts. Like, it's like, how can we ground them and how can we be in communication around them?
And sometimes we lead. I'm pretty ridiculous in terms of, I'm the, you know, the memes or the wife says, if I lost my arm, would you still, like, I'm a little ridiculous about
if
things.
I look like this, and I'm like, stop
Should
it.
I show the
no, we told you. I told you you're not going to do that. It is ableist.
But
do not do
this
that.
is not ableist.
Stop.
I lost my train of thought. But
you will ask me if I'm the type of person that will love you. Would you love me if I look like this? Would you love me if this happened? Would you love me if this happened?
Yeah, but I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, that's great. So, all right.
But there's an intimacy to having like that first sharing with somebody. And we're learning, you have to be willing to almost not be attached to that. We can be impacted by it. And I have to accept that I'm not always going to be the first person I want to be. But why? And so then it gets into like, why do you want to be that person in someone's life? Like, we need to talk about things that were sacred to each other. Yeah. Could they also exist in our relationship, our other relationships? And
we even talked about like spaces that were sacred if they come in town. Go, yeah. Like, where can we go? And then like, how is the community going to see that?
Or is it just our place and nobody else? And then it was like, well, in that moment, you're not going to be there. So like, I can have experiences with them anywhere. That don't take away from my love or the sacredness or the beauty of that moment. Which is that scarcity, like there's not enough. But then I think if you want to talk about this too briefly is the holding space. You talked, I think when you and your person were figuring things out, there were some spaces where I held space for you around what was going on, what was hard. And then you recently found yourself in that place for me as we're kind of figuring things out. And like, there's been tears and I'm like having, you know, all these epiphanies and all these things. And you're like showing up and holding space. And most people forget the jealousy about somebody else getting. How do you hold space for somebody, your wife, when their other person is upsetting them, making them cry, or you're like,
stop doing that. That's what I want to say. And there have been times when Aaron has wanted to nudge, whisper, shout in my person's partner's face. Like that's the real thing, because you want to be like, no, do it right. Because we all want to see each other loved well, you know? And so then it's like, no, you're doing it wrong. It's like Hitch, you know? You're like,
and it is a fine line of protection, because we don't play about each other.
We do not.
And I remember I said, I don't want your heart to get hurt. But here's the thing, when you are in a relationship and you love and have connection, it's hard.
There's a risk.
And there is a risk. And so I have to be like, all right, just like it's the dignity of risk. I even talk about this so much with work and as a parent of young adults, but also you get the dignity of that risk. And so my job is not to come in and interfere or disrupt it necessarily, even if I see it coming. And we both have had to work through that in general of like,
I know where this is about to go.
Yeah, but like that's not my job to stop it unless, and I might say like, can I share something? You know, we talk a lot about it, but ultimately it's to be that soft landing for each other.
Yeah. And that soft landing space is one that is a specific role. It's a specific skill. And it's putting my feelings or opinions aside when they're invited. Yes, I can share them.
Which I did ask you about some things.
Did.
Like, this is what I'm thinking.
When you invite me, I'm going to share. But it's really just, I'm here to hold the space so that you can be witnessed and you can process in the ways that you need to. And then if you want my opinion, if you want my advice, you can ask for it, but I'm not going to force it on you. I'm just holding the space because I love you and that's our relationship. And that puts us in right relationship with each other.
Yeah. I was really excited for your weekend getaway.
Thank you. It was really,
Remember,
really nice and peaceful.
You get to get out of Columbus and I just wanted you to have that.
You were surprised I called you.
I didn't expect, because there was a time we would have been like, what time are we going to talk? This book ends. Like, so when you think about the expansion and the softening, I didn't actually expect us to have any much contact that weekend.
Because I was both going to go call our wives.
Right. I'm like, I'm doing my thing. I was like,
yeah, of course.
Hey.
So it's, and it's cool. Like, I think it's cool. And I look forward to that integration more and more. Yeah, that's something. I love you so much. It's like I want to comfort you. I want to be there for you. Can it be a challenge? Like, it's not easy.
None of this is easy.
None of this is easy.
These low, soft voices, don't let them fool you.
Don't. We're grounded. We've done our work.
Yeah.
We're coming to you from the grounded stage.
Earlier today, like with my tarot cards all around.
What's wrong? And I'm like,
she goes, "Are you crying?" No. Tears just coming out.
I just like come over and like put my arm on her, and then I go get her tissues. I'm like, there, you know. And then it's like,
that's pretty much.
All right, I'm gonna go now, do my thing for the morning. But yeah, it's definitely a place, and I also have to be able to speak when I don't have it and I can't. Thankfully, you know, we were both traveling, so I had some space. But I think it's really important to tap in with yourself there around. Am I ever, really in general in life, it's a really great skill to have. Can I just hold space without inserting my opinion, my thoughts, my advice, my dissent, my pettiness? Can I just hold this space? Because that's what needed. Somebody needs to be witness right now, and I don't think I need to contribute here.
Which is so hard because I have an opinion about everything.
Yeah.
You mentioned the relationship escalator.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to touch on that quickly. You know, when we are dating and I don't know, it's been like this forever, but it's an escalator of like, first you start, you know, you like each other, you're talking, you're dating, then you're exclusive. Then you're like, where do we go from here? So it's like always constantly moving up to attain something. And so it's like around, you know, moving in, getting married, all these things. And that's what, you know, monogamy teaches us. And one thing I appreciate about us is when we got married, we didn't get married for our commitment, to be committed. We were already committed to each other. Our marriage was a ritual and celebration of our love and commitment to each other.
In my head, I was just like, and like, we're financially bound. Yay.
details.
That's
important for you.
For me?
Yeah, to me, I'm like, that's
don't
great.
play with my money, don't play with my character.
But that's not why we got married. And that's because that's part of the escalator of what it means. Camille's not even paying attention to you, so don't even. But that's for everybody is different. And some folks, and I'm not judging why people get married, but for us, it wasn't to be committed. It was to celebrate our commitment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in non-monogamy or polyamory, there's not a relationship escalator with the other person. And so for you and your person feel like you've reached the highest. It's not going to keep escalating. It's going to deepen.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's different than like, are we going to move in together? Are we going to get married?
Yeah,
where
those
do you
questions
see this?
don't exist.
They don't exist.
We've
right?
had to ask them. Like,
which you should always be checking in.
Just making sure like we're still aligned.
Yeah.
Right? With where we see this going.
Yeah.
Because we both have proclivities to be solo poly if we weren't married.
What does that mean? Tell the people what that means.
Solo poly means that your primary relationship is with yourself and you date others. So like you probably live alone.
There's really no hierarchy.
There's no hierarchy.
Yeah.
Other than yourself. If I need to heal, if I need to soothe, if I need to do things, I figure out the ways that I need to do that, and I do that before I come to the relationship.
I'm a nester. I just realized that.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, but not a monogamous nester.
No.
Give me multiple nests of luxury.
Okay, home is where I am. I like that. I love that. But those are things that are important because as you're having those conversations, it's important to know. Like I know that with my person, no matter what happens outside of us, it's never going to get to this place.
Yeah.
And that's important. But that doesn't mean that there's any lack of depth
or
any lack of connection or any lack of love there.
And I'm in the space of there's a lot of depth and connection, and we're trying to figure out what that looks like.
Sure.
Knowing there's no escalator. And like not having that escalator takes so much pressure off. It's like, we're just going to be whatever we're going to be. We get to determine that. But
it's about time and enjoying
but it's
each
not
other.
a scarcity of like, that's it, I have nothing else to give. It's like, how beautiful can this be? How deep can this be? How much can this be? I use the word accessory, not in a flippant way, but like to just add brilliance to what we already experiencing in life.
A beautiful accessory.
Yeah.
Bonus love, if you will.
Bonus love. I love that.
Yeah. So you've said sometimes that you were able to explore all of this where you're at right now because of the security that's here.
Oh my God.
And we've talked about how in polyamory, I think, so this is where instead of a situational hot seat, I would like to talk about our pet peeves or myths about polyamory that we want to address by stating that I wish that polyamory was taught as a viable relationship option and it wasn't faltered onto monogamy being society's, but I mean, capitalism, patriarchy, all of that. But
here's my soapbox on it.
Okay.
I cut you off, sorry.
You did.
I just felt really strongly, but go ahead.
I want non-monogamy, polyamory, open relationships, I want all of those things to be taught as viable potential ways to be in relationship as opposed to monogamy. That's me.
I wish there didn't have to be a label around like it's just relationships. I mean, this is controversial, but like God is our example of polyamory. Jesus loves me, yes, I know.
I said, ooh, that's spicy.
Right? So if I'm singing the song, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Well, the Bible tells Karen that too. And guess what? And you, right? That is like the ultimate example of polyamory, many loves.
That's a hot take, boy.
And we can all say we're blessed and highly favored. Okay, can we all be? If there's no choice, and he knows the number of hairs on all of our heads. We were all fearfully and wonderfully made. All of us. It's not specific to me. So there's that example. And then you can take it another notch. Jesus.
Maybe the next time is about pleasure and like God is non-binary.
I have a whole thing around pleasure and not pleasure, but the Holy Trinity and kink. But we'll come back to that.
Oh, that's exciting. That's a hot take. I already know that take, and that's a hot take.
But
so what I will say is...
and then Jesus died for all of us? All of us?
Did Jesus know that Jesus is going to die? Did Jesus consent to that?
But and this isn't me being blasphemous around the gospel. It's like if this is what's being held up as a standard for love, for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whomever.
And if God is all knowing, all giving, all of these things,
that to me is like, and we're created in their image. Why aren't we able to love in that way? And then you look at parenting. I have 2 children,
and people be doing the daddy worship and like God is everything. Anyway, yes. that's another podcast.
So I have 2 children. I love them. There's not one I love more than the other. I love them differently, and differently means how I show them love because they have different love languages. Think about your friendships. We all have, the girl gang, the groups. Like we are, what's the word I'm looking? We're not mono in so many parts of our life. People have multiple jobs. You have more than one pet. Like there are so many ways, but for some reason, and in terms of the heart, we think we can only be here. And we can look at patriarchy and capitalism, and it is all established, colonized. Like there's all these reasons, but that doesn't make it right.
Right. I love that. So in this section, closing out, I want to talk about maybe some myths or pet peeves that you've heard, or the pet peeves that you have around the polyamory space in the conversation, I guess. One
is that you aren't happy with your current partner, so you have to go get something else. Karen and I have a commitment that if there is something that we feel is lacking here, that we don't just go seek it, that we have a conversation. Because maybe it's lacking because the other person is not interested or doesn't have it. But it's not lacking. It's just not available.
Like we use this example about the museum a lot, which I love, is that Erin loves to go into the museums and she likes to dilly-dally.
I get lost in a museum.
She gets lost in a museum. I'm like I see the art, I read the things, I process, beautiful, boom, I'm out. 2 hours. All the exhibits in the museum. And so for a date idea, she probably should take someone that has a similar enjoyment and process.
I'm still
around
looking
museums.
For somebody. So if you like museums and you want to dilly-dally,
go with her, please.
But you're going to have to hold my hand and follow me around.
I know exactly who that probably could be. That friend could be.
I think I do too. Okay, I'll ask
we'll ask later. Okay. And they might know it listening too. But yeah, so fine. Please go on those dates. But the truth is the ultimate on the ground truth. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go with her.
And I want her to want to do it. So I don't want, if you don't want to.
I can't make myself want to do that.
Right. It's not fun.
I cannot.
Nobody has fun.
Please.
Okay. No museum for you.
I mean, we can go.
Can we see the cat exhibit at least together?
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is around the jealousy. I'm too jealous. I couldn't do that.
I've heard that a lot.
Well, stop it. I don't know. What are you jealous? I mean, jealousy is but it's a real emotion. And we always want to stop things. Be jealous. Just don't be absorbed by it.
Yeah. And I mean, there are times where we experience jealousy.
Yeah.
But then the conversation becomes, all right, what is the fear? What is the disconnect? What am I missing? And then the conversation gets grounded and way more expansive from there.
But sometimes things just aren't fair.
Yeah.
It's a misnomer that it's fair. And
then we put it into a chapter of the book. Nobody feels sorry for you.
And you're really big on justice and fairness and evenness. And sometimes it's just not real. Yeah. I think another pet peeve is that the selfishness, which being bisexual, people would say that I'm not bisexual. But when I thought I was, there was all that around you're just greedy. So, okay, fine. I like abundance. Okay.
Sorry.
I want a buffet.
Right.
But also around it's just for sex. And I think what's important to say, because people are so quick to it's not. Maybe it is. Sex is really beautiful and awesome. We don't have to act like it's a bad thing. Maybe A.
Right.
And my whole plan with non-monogamy was just to have sex with other people. I can't believe I just said that out loud on a podcast. But let's keep it here because that's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's not because what we have isn't beautiful and I don't love it. I just like different things.
Well, I mean, the title is going to have polyamory in it some way.
Yeah.
So whoever's here, I hope you're getting what you came for.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things with, I have always said that people who are in polyamory and really committed to this is you have a communication and a calendar king. And I do.
We were talking to a friend about a week ago and he was showing us his calendar and there were so many colors and different codes and hearts and that's beautiful. And with one of our other relationships, we had shared calendar at one point. We tried to throuple.
There was an email. Don't.
There was an email.
There was an email.
But it is a bit of a kink, the communication. Fortunately, we're already, this is a thing, we're truth tellers. And we hold each other's dignity. That's a priority. And we hold our own dignity. So, of course, we're truth tellers because we're not trying to.
What is your moral imperative?
Around what?
Life.
Oh.
I'll tell you mine. Mine is to honor the dignity of every human person and to connect and sit with my own radiance. Sometimes those moral imperatives can be at odds in these situations because I'm holding the dignity of everybody, even when I'm pissed that somebody who's 2 connections away has hurt someone I love. Like, that's hard.
Yeah. My moral imperative shifts. Right now, I'm really leaning into the understanding and knowing of that what's possible. There's so much more possible than what we see and experience, but then also creating spaces and supporting others in that as well. And so I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. And why it's a moral imperative is like, that's what I lean into. I don't just have this haphazard hope in the world, but I do have hope in what's possible. I have hope in people because I know something else is possible. And so that's, for me, that's the space I'm living in right now. That's the way I like to approach things. Curiosity, how I'm feeling. I mean, I'll be the first. By the time I come to you with something, I've already done my check-in.
Yeah.
And I can say, like, this is ridiculous, or this is that, or a story I'm telling myself, or I need to check the facts. This is a really big part of my recovery, is checking facts, because my creative world will just spiral. And so I can spiral and respond to the spiral, or I can just check the facts and ask you. And so I would also say truth-telling is part of that in there. Because how can you know what's possible if you're not going to tell the truth?
Any other burning pet peeves? Because then I'm going to end it with what's current in the world, and we're going to have a small conversation about some people that y'all know.
Nothing that I can think of, but I can promise you the moment we get in the car, they'll
absolutely. I'll give you one of mine. Mine is the notion that you can be in a polyamorous or ethically non-monogamous. I hate that we have to put ethical in front of non-monogamous. A non-monogamous relationship, and one person in a relationship doesn't know that they're in it.
What do you
I
mean?
hate that.
What do you mean?
I feel like that's present in society, especially with a lot of heteronormative relationships.
Informed consent is important across the board. And so, like, when we go to the doctor, you don't just walk. I know nobody reads the informed consent forms anymore, but when you go in, you know what to expect. And so, and this is something I taught with my kids, but my son in particular, like, do you, but be honest and tell people so they understand the relationship they're in. Let them opt into that. Yeah. I've had a poly situation where I didn't know what I was being brought into, and it created a lot of harm. And another reason for a lot of my therapy. And so, like, is this what you're meaning? People don't know what relationship they're in? Like, just be open and honest about it. There doesn't have to be shame. Having this conversation even was like, oh, we're going to talk about this out loud. And like it's real. And somebody may never know who my other people are. Right. It's not even about that. No. But it's important for us because we have to tell the truth. And we have to tell our stories. Yeah. And that's the other thing. And this brings me perfectly into the current Jada and Will situation. We're going to talk about it because you're not going to get it outside of here. That's the only time I'm going to talk about it. But they are recently, Will had said that they were doing a experiment on unconditional love. And I hear so many times, and if there's a generational curse that I'm pretty committed to breaking from my background and my culture and in my family, is the notion that you have to stay silent, live silently, die silently, with all your shame and guilt and all this stuff. And so to dismantle and undo and unlearn that shame and guilt, that there's nothing wrong with me for being this way, for being able to think this way. I truly believe that I'm able to experience love in the most heightened versions of it because of the way that I think about it, and the way that I think about things, and the way that I live out my life. Yeah. And, I've seen a lot of the commentary, everybody like, shut up, Jada. Like, of course she's a Black woman. So of course they're like, she's emasculating him and da-da-da-da. I'm like, did anybody read his book? Like, he said some stuff in there. He said some stuff in there about how he was showing up and how he was acting in the world before he did some healing. And I think that if he hadn't been with Jada, I don't know if that healing would have been as obvious to him that he would have needed or whatever. But he was out here doing the most, and he said it like he had he was doing a lot. And then she comes out and is telling the truth, to her truth, whatever that is. And now she's a narcissist. And now she's they done put her in pictures as Tupac. The internet is wild. The thing is, like, I totally get there. I get it. Been separated for 6 or 7 years or trying to figure it out. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I know it makes us feel uncomfortable. Yes. But, and something you just said around, like, was it healing in silence? What did you say about being quiet about what's going on, living in
Live
silence?
silently and die silently.
And I'm a writer. A lot of people don't know that about me because I write in silence. I write in secret, if you will.
Yeah, you got a secret account and everything to share
I do.
your little poetry.
It's not secret. It's just not public. But because I have to be witnessed. When you're a writer, you're an artist, you have to produce anyway. But like my writing is straight from my life. It's deep. It's dark sometimes. But in that means there's no witness. And like, I just realized the way that shame or that need to feel protective is actually silenced myself in a way so it doesn't get out there. Yeah,
and when we're fully witnessed, valued, seen, loved, heard, our potential gets realized.
And in polyamory, it's almost like just adding more people that can hold you, witness you, bring out parts of you didn't even know existed.
Hopefully, celebrate your brilliance and radiance.
Hopefully, of course.
Mm.
I love you.
I love you too. That's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.